So thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Our topic today is sustainability planning in a hyper-partisan world. It's not getting less partisan, unfortunately. And so Ted very graciously invited me to join him in this presentation. My name is Whitney Ward. I'm a principal, an architect, and a planner with VCBO Architecture. You want to introduce yourself, Ted, while we're here?
Makes sense. That's good. Hi, everybody. Ted Knowlton. I'm the Deputy Director at Wasatch Front Regional Council, and I am a city councilor in North Salt Lake City, located just north of Salt Lake City.
And, you know, it's interesting because I've been working sort of in the sustainability realm for a very long time now. I'm feeling very old in my career, but I'm going on almost 20 years of experience. And when I started in this world of sustainability, there was a lot of uncertainty around it, right? A lot of unknowns, a lot of scary conversations. And then some of those scary conversations evolved into uncertainty and cost. And so what we want to talk about today is really what sustainability means today and how to have a conversation in a way that maintains engagement and perhaps even support for endeavors that you're going after in your community. So this is our agenda. We're going to give a little bit of an overview of sustainability and planning, what it's looked like in the past, and we'd love some feedback from you all and challenges that you've seen, conversations that you've had, any way we can help sort of have a dialogue about how to support the conversations in your communities. And then we also, in my time, I've started shifting the conversation and the perspective on sustainability and even how I talk about it. It's not even about language, but it's really also about approaches and starting points in the discussion. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. And then Ted is going to share his very extensive knowledge in communication, outreach, and how to have more productive conversations in our world today.
Maybe I'll do two things. One is, I think you can interrupt us. You don't have to hold your questions until the end. Second thing, it's always the case at an APA Utah conference that there's a ton of expertise in the room. So feel free to share your expertise too.
Please and thank you. I was going to say, do you have a question already, Levi? All right.
Except you can't ask a question now. Now you can.
Now you can. It
now.
started. The presentation has officially started. So one of the things that I have seen over the years is that sustainability is kind of a four-letter word in a lot of communities. And it has evolved this way because of perceptions. And a lot of those perceptions are rooted in when you start talking about sustainability, it means that it's a hardship right off the bat, right? It means you're taking away my car, you're taking away my lawn, you're taking away things that are important to me so that I can do something for the sake of the environment, which I don't really necessarily have a direct connection with or understanding of the value, right? I feel like there's a lot of sort of negative connotations associated with the term.
Like, well, our energy needs to be more expensive in order to dissuade people from using things, right? It's always on this focus of making life harder in order to have better environmental outcomes, right?
Yes, and so it's always like, oh, I have to drive less, or I have to spend more on this other thing, or I have a shower head that doesn't give me the water pressure I want, right? That it always feels like often it's rooted in a conversation around a hardship, a burden, taking something away that you enjoy. And so that's where a lot of people get turned off. The other thing is that sustainability has also been rooted in a conversation around higher cost. Oh, it's going to be more expensive to do this thing. And so not only is it a burden, but it's an additional cost. So Ted and I were sort of chatting about what are the big three things that we think are hard around the sustainability conversation. And these are kind of the three problems that we've identified as needing to be solved in our conversations and in our communities to be able to better connect with people. And the first one is it is perceived as a left-leaning or a liberal agenda, especially in the world that we live in today where everybody has a strong political opinion and preference. And those political opinions and preferences are rooted in the information that we see and that we gather and that we hear, and oftentimes those are curated by us to align with our perspectives, right? And so there is a conversation about a preconceived notion around political preferences, around sustainability. Again, that idea that there's a high upfront cost and a burden to implement sustainable strategies. And then the other one that I think is really important, and this is one that I deal with personally on a daily basis, is to feel like you have an impact is hard, personally. Like, okay, I choose to recycle my plastic bottle, but is that plastic bottle even going to the recycle bin, right? Should I not be using plastic in the first place? Does it even matter what I do if globally we're not doing enough? And so there's this conversation around, do we collectively have an opportunity for impact? Or is it overwhelming and so we should just not worry about it? Are there any other problems that you guys are seeing in your communities that you would like to talk about how to overcome? Yeah, back of the room. Oh, hold on, Ted's coming with the mic. I forgot we have to microphone you.
Sorry, I'm sitting in the back. I would just add different skill sets, and knowledge sets associated with some of these topics. For instance, with my experience in landscape architecture, we talk a lot about stormwater infrastructure, green stormwater infrastructure, and working with engineers. They're trained in the conventional stormwater stuff, and I think often the breakdown comes in just not understanding, not being educated in how some of these things work.
Yeah.
And not just from the design level and the implementation level, but even down to the maintenance level. So there's a whole realm of skill sets that we need to apply to some of these things, so that retraining the way we think about handling these.
Awesome. And there was somebody else who had their hand raised near there, Ted. Don't go too far.
This is just an idea because I'm not originally from here. I grew up in Washington, so just the differences of the states and how we deal with recycling, for example. What I really like in Oregon and Washington is they have sites where you can get paid money for recycling, that you have deposit centers, and a lot of people who maybe are homeless or in between jobs and just need a little bit of extra income could be going around and collecting recycled products and make a profit off of it.
I love that idea also. Any other thoughts, questions, challenges you guys are seeing? Do these resonate with you? Oh yeah, here, hold on, I'll come back to you.
I just noticed that everyone is idling their car here. I also didn't grow up here, but people love to idle their cars.
I know my husband does it too. Yeah, and so my husband is that guy with the big truck who idles his car all the time. We have lots of conversations about it at home. I'm familiar with this.
Mine is actually related to Logan City. I work for the Cash MPO, and one thing I've noticed is on Main Street there's a lot of complaints about congestion and people wanting to be able to get through town faster, and yet they're unwilling to get rid of on-street parking, for example, which causes a barrier to, for example, widening the road so you can get more traffic throughput. So there's some stuff about that.
I'm going to add the term convenience. It's perceived as inconvenient. That's a really important problem.
Well, Whitney, I was just going to add, I think what Isaac kind of is getting to, maybe as an additional problem that people see to sustainability, is just change in general. It's different than what they grew up with. It's different than what they have. It's just change, and change is hard for people.
Love it. Okay.
One more, and then we'll jump into some content.
Yep.
I just wanted to add, I think that one of the barriers to sustainability is people like sustainability without calling it sustainability. So it's just using the terminology so that people are on board or understand it, because they already are to some degree.
Oh, friend, you're speaking our language. Please hold for the following slides. So to that exact point, and to many of these points, one of the things that has really helped me over the years is to reframe the conversation and not make it about something that is hard, not make it about something that is scary, to really be sort of solution-focused and change the conversation from sustainability doesn't need to be a burden, it doesn't need to cost more. We can make moves that add, that improve, and that impact in a very positive way your quality of life within the community. And so we want to reframe the discussion from a burden or a hardship, an inconvenience, something that's expensive, something that's going to cause negative change, to an opportunity for more and better in our communities. And that's kind of where we're rooting our presentation today, is how do we transfer that conversation into a positive light and change our terminology, change our verbiage, change our general approach, right? And so some of the perspectives on sustainability that I have found, again, useful in conversations, and please feel free to steal this. This is my favorite definition of sustainability. And sustainability, in its root, is the capacity to endure, right? And if you dig into it a little bit more, it really means making the decisions for today that also allow future generations to make decisions to meet their needs. So ensuring that the work that we're doing today doesn't inhibit future generations from having the same quality of life and being able to move forward in the world that we live in. It truly is the capacity to endure and optimally to improve.
And the nature of that is not partisan, right?
No.
I mean, in fact, it's kind of rooted a lot in conservative circles as well, historically.
Resilience, right, is another really strong word, but it's a true conversation about anything: financial sustainability, environmental sustainability, social sustainability, whatever that thing is. It's rooted in, we want to do the best we can today so that future generations can do the best that they can moving forward. And so oftentimes in past decades, conversations around sustainability have been very environmentally focused. We have bad air, so we need to do something to improve our air quality. We have not enough water. We have to cut our water use, right? They're rooted in the environmental implications. And while that is important, it is also sort of contributing to the conversations we had earlier where people feel like it's far away, it's disjointed, what can I do? That sounds expensive. What's the benefit to me? This sounds like a burden or a hardship. So what we want to do moving forward is really talk about the things that matter to people on the everyday basis, which shockingly is rooted in economics. And so if any conversation you can have around how can we save money, how can we save our city's money, how can we save our residents' money, how can I save myself money to change my budget, to make me more financially secure, that already becomes an opportunity and a benefit, right? And we're willing to maybe get through some challenges if at the end of the day there's a financial benefit on the other side of that. So if you start to look at the problems where economics are an issue, and you can often find opportunities for solutions that happen as a side effect to improve the environment and improve social conditions for many people in your community. And that's really the root of sustainability in the work that we're doing, right? And so economic opportunities to drive the decisions, explore all solutions, and oftentimes you may find that the environmentally friendly or reduced impact solutions may meet that need, and there might be some beneficial social externalities as a side effect of this. And so some examples we're going to talk about today are public infrastructure. Who here provides public infrastructure and plans for infrastructure in their communities? Many of us. Did you know that that's a very sustainable thing that you're doing in providing clean water to your community members and power? So integration of nature, who here is against integration of nature in their communities? Yeah. You won't say it out loud, will you? Varied land use, affordable housing, and transportation choice. And so again, right off of the bat, you can see the terminology associated with these things are everyday goods. They're things that are important in adding value to the community. And so it really isn't a conversation about sustainability at all. It's just doing your job to the best of your abilities. And so public infrastructure includes, again, water, stormwater, sewer, power, information, What else falls under our public infrastructure umbrella? Garbage, huh? Roads, waste. Any other items? Parks, trails, recreation opportunities, right? And roads. And the big thing with roads is that roads are the carrier of a lot of our public infrastructure. And so in good road design, you can inherently improve the sustainability of your communities and improve service delivery on an ongoing way. So one great conversation around sustainability from a public utility perspective is investing in and maintaining your water systems means that you're not wasting water, you're not wasting energy, you're getting water more efficiently to the citizens that you're serving. And also, public infrastructure is general good distributed in a way that reduces the cost burden across the community, right? If everybody was responsible for their own infrastructure or utilities, if they had to go get private waste management, if they had to put all renewable energy on their house to be off the grid, it would cost them substantially more than it does to engage with public utility infrastructure. So maintaining, improving, and providing effective public utilities is inherently enhancing sustainability in the communities. Anybody disagree with that or have concerns about that statement? Yeah. Hold on, I have to give you the microphone.
Are we discussing public infrastructure or public utilities? Because I think there is a difference. Public infrastructure for me includes schools, public buildings, libraries, etc., above ground facilities. If it's infrastructure, it's probably below grade. So I want to make sure we're using the right terminology, infrastructure or utilities.
Thank you for clarifying. And I guess my approach would be to say both, right? And the reason I would say both is because those buildings that you're talking about, schools, libraries, recreation facilities, all of those are contributing, again, that same idea of enhancing quality of life for your communities in a way that is more cost effective than if they were going to do that on their own. So I would say both for that. So again, reminding people that the work that you're doing in your communities is already contributing to positive environmental impacts. And the other one that's a fun one here is talking about power. So for years, we've been talking about carbon impact, right? How do we integrate renewable energy into our projects? How do we make sure that we're driving down our environmental footprint from an energy utilization perspective? And what we're finding is our power companies are doing it for us because right now, solar is the least expensive way to add energy to the grid. And so again, just by going to an all-electric building or by supporting the power providers or purchasing power from providers who have a renewable portfolio, by doing nothing else than providing the lowest cost entry power to your communities, you're already being more sustainable. And so there's a great sort of transition and move towards, again, that economic impact of the utilities and infrastructure. The next one is, of course, integration of nature. And there was a conversation about low impact development in the back of the room earlier. And integration of nature is one of those other win-win-wins. The natural ecosystems that we're rooted in, especially here in Utah, the rivers, the mountains, the trails, the more you can express those in your communities, the more people feel connected to the place that they live in. And they see that as a public amenity from a recreation, a wellness perspective. And by the way, it also helps you manage stormwater where you can daylight creeks and expand riparian areas. It helps you to manage and enhance your air quality problems by having more nature in your communities. Having more parks makes more livable, which means you can maybe densify your housing a little bit because people have access to these amenities.
I wanted to build on something that Whitney threw out in the framing early of talking about what you gain, not what you lose. Now, when it comes to nature, this is kind of a reality. If we're focusing on habitat, what is the message? The takeaway that a lot of people take from that is, so I can't use that then. If your emphasis in your way of talking about it is a place for you and your kids to recreate, that's the upside of the communication. That's the here's what you gain side of the communication. Now, I'm saying that to you in the vein of we are aiming to communicate to a broad spectrum of people, not just the converted.
Yes. Did you have a question? No? Okay. So again, by just allowing for natural places and spaces in your community, you're hitting a lot of sustainability goals in a way that resonates and connects with communities on what's important to them. And we can talk for a whole other session on how access to nature and outdoors improves our mental health, our physical health, improves learning, improves productivity in our communities, and just being able to go outside for a few minutes, which you should all do after this session, clears your mind and makes us happier, healthier people, right? The other one that we often get pushback on is mixed use, right? There's a lot of maybe negative connotations around mixed use or concerns about mixed use, and just changing the verbiage a little bit to talk about varied land uses allows us to have a conversation with our communities around, well, gosh, isn't it nice to be able to walk to your elementary school, right? Isn't it nice to be able to walk to a grocery store, to have some restaurants nearby? And at the end of the day, the goal is to have more walkable communities. And walkable communities allow us to get out of our cars. When we get out of our cars, not only are we saving time, but we're also saving money. Does anybody here know the average cost of car ownership per year?
Something like
$10,000 to $15,000 a year. So if a family could go from a 2-car ownership family to a single car ownership family, you're freeing up about $10,000 to $15,000 a year of dollars that could be spent differently within that family, right? And so again, getting down to the root of economics. Also, if you're walking to the grocery store or to the restaurant or to the park or to the school, that's time with your family where you can actually engage with them differently. And so there are great opportunities that come with this idea of providing the services that you need within a reasonable distance of where you live. Ideally, and you guys, this is really crazy. This one ties really closely into affordable and diverse housing. But ideally, we would be able to live and work in the same community. How many of you spend more than a half an hour driving either way to work? Yeah, about 4 or 5 of you in this room. How many of you spend more than an hour in your car each day moving to and from the places you're going? It's a big deal. And it's time lost out of your life, right? It's time lost doing the things that you want to do. And so the more we can talk about having diverse housing options in our community, the more we can talk about giving people time back and improving that quality of life. The other really great things that comes from diverse housing choices and options is that you can stay in your community longer. So we have a lot of people who, let's say they're getting older and they don't want their 3,000 square foot 3-level home any longer, or 2-level home. They want to be able to downsize but stay in their neighborhood, stay where they are, and move into a house that's more suitable for them. And allowing that transition of housing typologies, but within the same community, provides a lot of value for those communities. And it's this thought of value comes from permanence, right? I know my neighbors, I know my neighborhood, I love the place I live, I'm rooted in it and connected to it, and I can make that transition in my life from my parents' house to my first home. I can make that transition from my first home to my family's home. And then I can make that transition from my family's home to my post-family home and feel like I'm still involved and invested in this community. And so that idea of opportunity in housing, not just that we want people who don't make as much money to live in our community, or we want to provide attainable or affordable housing for other people to be able to move in, but really framing it through the light of we want everybody to be able to continue to stay and prosper in our community. And that means you. You have this choice. You have this opportunity moving forward. It is the exact same goal, an outcome on the other side, just reframed in a different light. Again, an opportunity light. And it's the exact same conversation around transportation choice. And in the past, you have to give up a car or you have to sit in traffic. This goes to your roadway conversation of more people want to get through more quickly. The best way to get people through really quickly is actually to consolidate the footprint of those people through buses or trains and get them off of the road in the first place, but that feels like we're asking them to give up, right? But there could be some benefits.
And one of those benefits is the people that are still driving, right? Maybe you've got to carry 3 boxes of donuts to your work meeting and you have to drive. The people who are taken off of the roads are no longer in your way while you drive. There is less need for more road capacity. You have funds to take care of those roads and keep them higher quality, get rid of those pesky potholes that everybody's always complaining about. I'm complaining about them. And you need less road for the same amount of flow. And from a sustainability perspective, that's a huge win.
Notice the framing here again. It's about what you're gaining. You're gaining choices. Have you heard people say, we got to get people to drive less? Have you heard something like that?
Get out of your
That's the
cars.
negative framing. That's the framing of I want to take something away from you because I'm trying to make the world more sustainable, right? You got to be careful about that.
But how many of you would have loved to take in a bus or a train from the Valley up to Logan for this conference and not had to drive your car, right? How many of you would love to spend $50 a month on a transit pass? We're ignoring you Cache County people that get it for free, so I'm just holding that on the inside right now. How many of you would love to spend $50 on a transit pass and be able to take buses and trains most places you need to go instead of spending $1,000 a month on your car payment and your insurance payment and your fuel costs? Right? Like, I would love to be able to work as I'm traveling from my office to my meetings and not have to drive. There's a lot of opportunity in choice. And that's where I think we need to focus the conversation around transit, is we want to give people the choice. Again, I have aging parents right now. My dad is at a point where he will not drive at night. My mom is getting close to that. I'm teaching them how to use Uber, right? They're in Pocatello, Idaho, where I'm on the app with them, trying to show them how to use different transportation choices so that they can have a more independent lifestyle. So if you think about high schoolers on buses, senior citizens using Uber, transportation choice helps to meet the goal of reducing carbon emissions from transportation, improving quality of life, and reducing your household costs. So plus, plus, plus. So again, reframing the conversation, getting towards the same goals, but doing it in a way that becomes a win for the communities. All right, Ted, you're up. I will keep an eye on questions.
And
Here's
that was
this.
so good. I'm like, just keep going. You do the rest of it. Anyway.
These are your slides, though. I can make
I
stuff
know,
up.
I know it. I know it. I don't know if you said this, but Whitney teaches sustainability planning at the U. Can you tell?
Anybody want to come to my class? It starts next Thursday.
All right, so in my slides, I want you to look for ideas to tailor communications to your key audience. You kind of have already been getting some of this. Ways to communicate to common ground regardless of differences in how people think politically, let's say, or their background in a community. And then how to engage the community in advancing sustainability, those kinds of things. All right, so people, who is your target audience? You get to pick one of these 3. If you're going to design a communication campaign, which of the 3 do you want to focus on the most? Maybe you don't ignore the other 2, but you want to focus on the most. Okay, you ready? How many say number 1? There is an argument for that, right? Motivating the motivated to really show up. That's how we have been electing our presidents in America. How many of you say number 2? Those that are undecided, right? Like, I can move them. They're movable. How about those that are skeptical? Okay, who wants to say, tell us why you picked any of those 3? Who's got like, I have a really important reason why I picked that?
It's sort of like you're not going to get everybody, so the low-hanging fruit, the least amount of.
Which would
like,
be which one?
the undecided people.
Okay.
Right? With the undecided people, they're kind of on the fence, not quite decided, but they could be swayed with a smaller amount of social political influence than someone who's deeply entrenched in a skeptical
Yeah, gotcha.
philosophy.
Arnab?
I'd say if you can sway number 3, you could sway anybody.
That's what I was going to say. If you target your messaging to those that are skeptical, that should be able to send the message to those that are undecided as well.
Okay, good. One more right behind you, and then I'll catch Levi.
Sorry, Levi. I voted for number 2 because I kind of felt like if you get some of that momentum going and get some base support for different sustainability projects, that could, even those that are skeptical, could bring them over. Because then more of that public information is out, there's more support, it's maybe not as unusual as maybe what they might have thought.
I changed mine to number 3 because I think those that are skeptical are also often the vocal minority that are having the most influence on decision makers. And so if you can get them on the same team, then that influences those decisions.
I'm not sure there is a right answer, by the way, just for what it's worth. But it's useful to kind of think about it.
I will say, ideally, you would be hitting everybody in your conversation, right? You're reaffirming your base. You're helping inform those who are kind of going either way to give them the information they need to make a decision. And to your point, maybe that information then continues to sort of bolster those on the other side.
Okay, so this is from Yale's program on climate change communication. And I'm focusing on climate change or global warming because in a way it's kind of the hardest one we've got. Because the commons of climate change is the entire Earth. And it is really challenging for people to feel like, yeah, it's something we should deal with in our community. And so it's gnarly. It's a gnarly one to communicate. This is the percentage of Americans that fall within these different categories. They're alarmed by prospects of global warming and what it can do. They're concerned, they're cautious, they're disengaged. They're just sort of, what can we do? They're doubtful, or they're dismissive, and it kind of relates to those 3 categories we had before. Now, I don't know exactly how this varies if we were to do it for Utah.
Can I just add an anecdote?
Please.
So when I started teaching sustainable development, it was in 2016. And I would walk into a classroom, and I teach, I should note, for the Masters of Real Estate and Development department predominantly. There's always a handful of planners and architects, but like 40 of my 50 students are burgeoning developers, typically business school backgrounds. And so I would walk into the classroom in 2016 and I would tiptoe into conversations around climate change. And over the last 10 years, there has been very much a swing from the majority of my students being kind of this zone to now I think the majority of my students are kind of right here, just in perspective of students. And I don't know if that speaks to the whole of the state's perspective, but I think we're seeing transition.
When I look at this, I also see sort of a weak middle. There's a lot of people that they're really motivated and alarmed, or they're very much doubtful and dismissive. And to me, it suggests a little bit of a two-prong, that you speak to the motivated and you want them to, or the concerned you want to motivate. And the skeptical, doubtful, dismissive, you want to speak to those doubts. But all of this is almost could be framed as, so you mean I should talk about climate change to everybody? And was that the story you got from Whitney's presentation? Yeah, we got to tackle the science with people.
No.
Yeah, I think that's kind of perhaps a theme of this entire presentation is, You don't have to talk about the science. You don't have to talk about the hardest issue. Climate change may be the hardest issue. These climate change, a strategy to mitigate climate change, reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, is more efficient buildings. It's more people riding public transportation. It's more trees, carbon sequestration. We can talk about those things without talking about climate change at all, truthfully. Now, maybe you do to motivate the people on the left side of the Yale spectrum. But for all those people on the right side of the Yale spectrum, probably a lot of Utahns, probably a lot of city councilors, it's not really your ball game. You're not really going to win. I would argue it's not the front end of your communications. The front end of your communications is to speak to something else. You see greenhouse gas emissions on the upper side of that benefit of energy efficient improvement. Okay, you're taking the right side of that Yale climate change spectrum. Pick one. Which of these benefits would you speak to instead? You can yell it out.
Prices is something that they feel, and
Energy prices. Again, starting with the economy and economic impact is always something that we understand. Health and well-being, local air pollution. How many of you guys have been in a room where you know somebody has stopped listening because you went down the wrong path? Right? So this is a little bit of contemplating, curating, understanding your audience, and finding that point of connection.
Absolutely. So, there's a nerdly term for this. It's co-benefits. The co-benefits of mitigating climate change. Let's just lean into that. When we are leaning into that kind of communication, do your best to see if you can convert the language to the benefit to an individual or a household. Personalize it. Whitney, you do a natural job of doing that as you present. It's amazing. We could talk about public health. That's a co-benefit. That's a wonky way to talk about it. I should have I gave examples of alternatives. And you heard Whitney do this, but instead of saying public health, we say more opportunities to stay fit or something like that. Instead of saying lower vehicle miles of travel, which, by the way, emphasizes to some, here's what you're going to lose. We're going to make you drive less. More time at home or being productive. You heard Whitney talk about this. Better connected streets. Well, there's nothing negative about that, but it doesn't communicate the benefit. The benefits might be it's easier for you to walk or bike to get there for you or your kids. Okay, who's got something you want to, do you have an example of something you're like, I've seen this resonate. I've seen message X resonate that is communicating a planning concept as it benefits an individual or household. Anybody got an example? Or I might be just trying too hard at this point. Yes, please.
I wish I could draw it for you, but the number of people that can be moved in a bus versus the number of people in a car or in cars on roads. Salt Lake City uses it all the time. Yeah.
We'll put it in the end of this presentation before we upload it for you all. It is a great GIF.
Okay, so let's go to another point. So I framed that as like you might have two big audiences. You're trying to motivate those that they care about, let's say, climate science, right? And then you've got the skeptics. And so you're going to, especially for the skeptics, you're going to an entirely different kind of place. But you got a big room, and you're trying to find ways to talk about things. What are some tricks to communicate based on common ground? There are a lot of indications that America's never been more politically polarized. I shouldn't say never. I think we've been as politically polarized in the years leading up to, in, and right after the Civil War. Okay, so that's kind of the space we're in terms of the level of polarization in America politically. Super polarized. But there are a lot of values. Come on, let's go. There we go. There are a lot of values that unite people regardless of their political persuasion. Things like this. I want to feel secure. I want to have good self-esteem. I want freedom. I have love for my children. I want to have peace of mind. Things like this, okay? It turns out that the words we use, how we talk about things, even the physical characteristics of a city can conjure up and either resonate with these kinds of values or against these kinds of values. And I want to just give you like a high level of this and not get into the details. It's all based on this research called values laddering. How am I doing on time? We got 20 minutes. Values laddering identifies how individuals decide whether attributes of something, it can be a product, a widget. A widget's a thing. Draw one. How those elements of the urban environment satisfy their fundamental human needs. So this is me gonna fail in a horrendous way on tape. I'm gonna try to be an amateur values laddering researcher just so you see how this works, okay? I was thinking, Levi, I would pick on you. Where are you? Right in front of me. Levi, do you love your community? Tell me, what is it physically about your community that you love? Give me one thing.
I love the green spaces.
Okay.
The parks.
Why do you love the green spaces? I'm moving up the values ladder. Why do you love the green spaces?
Because I have a lot of fun with my kids there, and we run into our neighbors while we're there.
Okay, I'm gonna go off the first one you said. You have a lot of fun with your kids. Why do you care about having fun with your kids?
I love my kids. They're the center of my whole life.
We're basically there already. So there was that was kind of he leapt ahead. He leapt up a couple of rungs. He went straight up really high in the sort of values orientation right off the bat. Sometimes people, there's lots of levels, intervening levels, like what's the functional consequence of something or and the like. But you basically got it, okay? And as it turns out, by the way, what Levi expressed is actually a recurring value orientation among Utahns. That they love our physical beauty and outdoors, and they love it because of the benefit to them and their children. It's that kind of discussion. This is a values map for Utah. How many of you are like, this is old hat, Ted? Seen this so many times? Okay. All right. I'm actually kind of glad that there's a couple who are like, I've seen this. I love that. This is a positive values map that's based on this kind of research in Utah, organized around the form of community. And you can see these things at the bottom, key attributes that people said they love. You see that right in the middle, scenic beauty, outdoor recreation. There's also a negative values map. I'm going to give you a boiled down, simplified version of these two right after this. But you can see a couple of things in here. Does this have a pointer, or am I going to cause the self-destruct sequence
it's the big
to
button in the
initiate?
middle.
What?
It's that big button in the middle.
Okay, there we go. See if I can pick out one thing on here. I should pick out one thing on here. So scenic beauty, outdoor recreation means there's enjoyable experiences. Where are some links? There's personal enrichment.
Happy life.
Yeah.
Happy life seems like a good aspiration for all of us, right? Peace of mind.
This is itself a simplification of the values map. Here is the negative values map. You've got high cost of living. High cost of living means my family moves away. I might not have that connection.
That reduces our peace of mind.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm going to have to go back to the older version that's a gnarly mess of lines. But this is a really good simplification of some of the links that I think are helpful to think about to act upon as a takeaway from this session, hopefully. One of them is this piece right here. Whenever people start to connote an attribute of the physical environment as crowding, it triggers lack of safety and hurts that core fundamental value of personal security. Anything that hits crowding, you're in real trouble with the personal security value orientation. I feel like I'm losing you a little bit. Give me a term that you hear planners use that could convey crowding. Density. Oh, tell us, why walkability?
To have a walkable community, a walkable space, things need to be close enough, crowded enough, as some people might hear, that you can get there on foot. And in a world where we jump in our car and we drive wherever we need to go and we don't talk to our neighbors, they're effectively strangers to us unless you go out of your way to talk to them. You add more people into your street, there's more traffic, it feels more crowded to get places. And there seems to be a disconnect between, in a walkable community, I will know my neighbors a little bit better because I have a kind of a casual, transient relationship with it. I say hello as I walk by. You almost do it instinctively. But in a car, we just, sometimes you don't even look at your neighbors as you drive by them. You don't even wave. But people get that feeling of crowdedness the more traffic there is. It's uncanny. Yeah.
That is interesting.
Traffic is an interesting one, too.
That is interesting. And who had another term? Or go ahead.
Mixed use.
Keep going. Tell us why.
Because at least this is, if I were thinking that way, I would say, oh, my home is close to these businesses and a lot of other people, so they're crowding into my personal space.
Okay.
Density, mixed use, traffic.
Urban.
Big
city, New York.
The word urban itself often hits people on that negative value orientation, even if we don't always mean urban.
Well, it's
yes, right.
So this is an interesting conversation, and I would actually I'm going to left turn for a second, Ted, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is really hard with where we all are in Utah is people want to live here, and people want to live here because of the outdoors, because of the access to nature, because of the trails, because of the quality of life, right? Which means our communities are growing. And are you guys having conversations in your community about how to accommodate growth while holding on to those things that make you who you are, like your parks and your green space and your agricultural space? How are you having those conversations in a way that are connecting with people today? Because that's the hardest conversation to have in Utah right now. Is anybody having that successfully? Let's dive into that when we're done.
Okay, so let me skip past this. I don't think I did a super effective job of putting this out here. One of the alternatives of using density when we're talking about housing is to talk about housing choices, which, by the way, very much is not single-family homes bad. Choices implies you pick what works for you, but let's provide options for people, right? And housing choices can be a way to talk about an environment that is technically more dense, but you don't have to talk about it in a way that hits people on the values funny bone. Make sense? Mass transit is hitting that crowding point. Public transportation does not. It's called the American Public Transportation Association for this reason. Did you know American Public Transportation Association did values laddering research, and that's how they picked their name. Here is an advocate in Houston who has 2 quotes. Tell me how he did. Okay? Let's start with the first quote. He's talking about active transportation. Some people think it's controversial to take away a lane from cars and to put it in a bike lane. I think it's controversial to only have one way of getting around. We have choices in all other parts of our lives, but when it comes to transportation, we only have one option. How did he do? Pretty awesome, right? He used the values ladder really effectively. Same story. I'm forecasting here. But here's the same story, end of the story. Catrufo said he knows where he stands. If you want to change the transportation culture in a place, you have to change the infrastructure. The infrastructure tells people how to behave. How'd he do? Yeah, he did pretty badly at the end.
Who wants to be told how they have to do anything? No. Not even children. Not once in my life have I found somebody telling me how I should do something, a successful interaction.
And I wonder if this guy, if his nose is itching right now and he doesn't know why. What's happening? But I see advocates blow the values ladder all the time. And I think once you start thinking about it, it's really helpful. So even though I did a terrible job of articulating this, here are some of the key things to try to resonate with when you are speaking about strategies, planning, urban form, choices. You heard Whitney do this really effectively. The impact on families, avoid crowding, speak to personal opportunity. Affordability itself tells people you have the ability to shape your life in a positive way. Just sheer getting at affordability, that basic economics piece. Maybe this is not rocket science, but the crazy thing is how bad we are as a community of planners in using this. That's why even though you hear it and you're like, well, duh, Ted. So, okay, so go out and practice it, right? Here's an example of a way that planners blow this. When they talk about multifamily zoning, it's amazing how many times you hear planners convey that as, we've got to get people, we've got to help force people or make them live in multifamily or dense housing. Or they put it in some way that conveys taking away choice. I hear this all the time.
They can only afford to live. This is how we're hitting affordability. We're going to give you apartments for affordability, right?
And the funny thing is it's actually factually wrong that most of the time when zoning allows multifamily housing, it's cumulative and you can still build a single family home in that same zone. And so it's actually creating more room for the market to respond. It's factually more free, and we don't speak to it that way. Does that resonate with you? Please avoid this mistake when you're talking about zoning. Are you with me? Okay. I feel like I want to deputize you.
We should have brought stickers for everybody, Ted. Next time we'll be better.
All right, now
we also have 10 minutes warning.
I will dismount here like Mary Lou Retton with the broken ankle. Sorry.
Yeah, wrong athletic reference.
Oh, thank you. By the way, Carrie Strug was awesome in that heroic moment. So I could only be so lucky. Yeah, thank you. How do I dig myself out of this bad metaphor?
Just keep going. Talk about engagement opportunities.
Yeah, there you go. Now, I hesitate to even get into this, but there is a blind spot in local policy making. Here I'm referring it to as the sustainability blind spot of local land use decisions. You've got a decision like an upzoning, or you've got a major development, and here it is, it's in an infill parcel in the middle of town. Here is the blind spot. The blind spot is that the negative impacts, there is very good information, dialogue, and motivated public on the negative consequences. And it is totally not true for the positive consequences of that development. And the positive consequences are, if you didn't build that, that growth would go somewhere else. And that growth, if it's at the edge of town, it's not near transit, it's perhaps a lower dwelling unit per acre, see what I did there? Then that in turn has much bigger impacts than this. Now, what I just did is I contrasted this decision with the alternative. We don't do that very well. We don't contrast, okay, you may not like this decision, but here is the alternative scenario. We're not giving one scenario to another. This is a whole world of engagement practice that Arnab happens to know a ton about with the University of Utah, scenario planning. But we can do it in formal ways, creating different scenarios, and we can do it just in the way we talk about an issue. Dear resident, you may hate this. Where do you, if you don't want people to live here, where do you want them to live? See what I did? I'm forcing them to think about the alternative.
And also, you can frame that question as, where are you going to live next?
Oh, that's good.
Where are your kids going to live when they move out of your house? That personal connection is a thing that is important, of tying it back to their individual choices.
Here is the West Layton Village proposal. Anybody from Layton here? You may be familiar with this. I don't know the latest of how this land policy landed. By the way, Layton does a great job of planning. I happen to know that firsthand. So, you know, this is just an interesting example of a development that it went away. Are you guys familiar with this? Okay. You're like painfully familiar with it? Okay, very good. So this is now, you know, easily a 10-year-old kind of set of graphics, right? This was from the communications from the developer. It's a vibrant, walkable community that offers a healthy mix of homes, shops, businesses, trails, and parks. It went to a referendum. In the referendum, some of the phrases from the people that did not want this to happen, quote, an urban nightmare of crime, pollution, traffic jams, overburdened schools, loss of family farms, and the end of the area's rural field. By the way, you feel some of this like crowding. Yeah.
Like every negative term imaginable.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is my dissection of, by the way, it lost. I mean, the referendum passed, the development died, okay? Close, it was really close. This is my take on what happened. In the local conversation, these were the issues on the left that were talked about. It's a change from the norm. There's a lot of local traffic. There's school impacts. Maybe they didn't talk about it, but I think it was out there. Are these people going to be like us? Okay. There will be places to shop. Green means it was a positive thing. Red was, it's kind of negative in that discussion. Life cycle housing, a place for me to move to when I retire. I think that was part of the local conversation. You guys can chime in here if you happen to know. And then I think that this was left out of the conversation, the stuff on the right. Affordability impact on the housing marketplace, reduced driving distances, because there wasn't an alternative put forward. You know, if we don't approve that, that development will happen, fill in the blank, and these are those impacts, right? So they didn't talk about reduced driving distances because there wasn't a contrast, cleaner air, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you see on the bottom one, lower right, reduced greenhouse gases, maybe you don't even talk about that. But these were not part of the thing. So how do you deal with this? How do you deal with this dynamic? It is like an intrinsic blind spot of local policymaking. It's focused on geographically close at hand impacts and not a very long time distance. See if you can relate those potential policy questions in a bigger, longer time frame. The very nature of sustainability is, can it endure? Are you thinking about the long-term impact of something and having that conversation as a community? A key way to do that is to just use your general plan. Use your general plan as a way to have a conversation about where do we want to grow, where don't we want to grow. Let's think long-term. A citywide conversation brings in those regional benefits and impacts that might have been part of that latent conversation. Make sense? Stretch out policy ideas temporally. Look at stuff on the citywide basis. This is an example. This would be, this is Merced, California, looking at different ways that growth might unfold. Here is the cool thing about this. This is 2 pictures of the city at build out. Both of them have the same number of single-family homes. Isn't that beautiful to be able to communicate? You're worried about the loss of neighborhoods. Let's take that equation out of this challenge. Let's talk about the rest of it. Let's talk about our commercial areas. Let's talk about our more dense areas. Let's talk about these kinds of things. See what happens when you go, you have more areas that are higher density in centralized locations, town centers on the right. Then part of the story you get here is you get more open space at the edge. This is causing the local policy blind spot. You're compensating for it by helping people think long term. Now, it's hard to do this when it's a development or a rezone, but you can do it in the way you talk about the development or the rezone, and that's the beauty of the general plan. I think I am and putting facts and figures to this as well.
1 minute over, so close.
I'm so sorry. 3 big takeaways. Speak to your audience. Use values, speak to underlying values. Neutralize parochialism by exploring the long-term citywide outcomes of potential decisions. Very sorry. There's a grab bag of a bunch of stuff we could have done if I had managed time better. So we need to wrap.
We do need to wrap. So I just have a couple of things from the first, if I can have 2 minutes. Yes, please. So the first is, there was a conversation, the first statement today was, people need to have specific knowledge to make change. You need to know what you're doing. And I would argue you don't. You need to be willing to have a conversation. And you need to be open about conversations, and you need to be willing to try different tactics to see what connects and what works, and try strategies in your communities to see if they resonate. Start thinking about small opportunities for low impact development. Start thinking about small opportunities for bus rapid transit. Start thinking about small opportunities to impact change and give it a shot. And the more people become familiar with it, the less they're scared of it. So that was my first statement. The second is convenience matters, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. And making it so that people understand, again, the benefits loud and clear in contrast to the negative side. They will get the negative side from the people who are against it no matter what. That will happen. Our job is to help them also understand the potential positives.
Hey, thanks everybody for being here. We're over, so we will wrap, and we'd love it if you have questions. We'll stay after. Have a great rest of your conference.
Thank you, guys.